you ever felt.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
States with the best and worst school systems. Best school systems. Based on a variety of measures related to school funding and academic achievement, Massachusetts earns a better grade than any other state in Education Week's Quality Counts report. Early childhood education is important for cognitive development, and in Massachusetts, 57.8% of 3- and 4-year-olds are enrolled in preschool, one of the highest shares of any state. Only 3 states report a higher median annual household income than New Jersey's $72,222. Partially because of its strong tax base, New Jersey invests heavily in its public school system. The Garden State spends the equivalent of 4.8% of its taxable resources on its schools, second in the country only to Vermont. Each year, nearly $16,000 per student are spent on New Jersey schools, more than all but 5 other states. Vermont is one of several New England states to have one of the highest rated education systems in the country. As is the case in most other states in the region, students in Vermont tend to do well in many standardized measures of academic achievement. About 45% of 4th graders and 44% of 8th graders are proficient in reading, each the third largest share of any U.S. state. Strong academic performance may be linked to Vermont's relatively robust early childhood education program. Children in New Hampshire are more likely to be raised in a financially secure household with college-educated parents than children in any other state. Growing up in poverty can significantly hinder academic performance, and in New Hampshire, 3/4 of all children live in families earning at least twice poverty-level income, a far higher share than the 57.2% of American children growing up in such households. Additionally, 63.9% of children in New Hampshire have at least one parent with a college degree, compared to less than half of all American children. Ranking relatively well in school finance, Maryland also does better than the vast majority of states in student achievement. In Maryland, 55.8% of 11th and 12th graders' advanced placement tests earn scores of at least a 3, by far the largest share of any state in the country. Worst school systems. No state's school system is rated worse than Nevada's. The state's high school graduation rate declined by nearly 12 percentage points over the decade through 2012. This was the largest decline of all states, the vast majority of which reported graduation rate increases. Just 71.3% of seniors graduate high school, lower than in all states except for New Mexico. With a median household income of $40,593 a year, Mississippi is the poorest state in the nation. State schools spend $9,656 per pupil annually, well below the national average per pupil spending of $12,156. Further, just 1.7% of students attend school in districts that report spending levels that exceed the U.S. average, versus 38.6% of students across the nation. According to Education Week, the poverty gap between rich and poor Mississippi school districts, particularly for 8th graders, is getting worse, and faster than in the vast majority of states. New Mexico's 68.6% high school graduation rate is the lowest rate of all states. Mirroring the poor graduation rate across the state, New Mexico's standardized test scores also trail those of most states. For example, the percentage of 4th grade students who demonstrate proficiency in reading, at 22.9%, is also the lowest in the country. Nationwide, 34.8% of 4th grade students demonstrate reading proficiency. Such poor outcomes are likely at least partially tied to various socio-economic factors. In Idaho, annual education spending is $8,066 per student, the second lowest of all states after only Utah. According to Education Week researchers, a certain level of funding equity across school districts is critical to the health of a state's education system. In addition to low per-pupil funding, education spending in Idaho is also poorly distributed across districts. Per-pupil spending in Oklahoma averages just $8,929 a year, the seventh lowest expenditure of all states. Like many other states with relatively low education expenditure, state students score poorly on standardized tests. Just 2.7% of 8th graders achieve advanced scores in math, nearly the worst standardized test performance of all states. States rankings by the numbers. States dropout rate. States math test scores. States reading test scores.